Hey everyone, it's your girl Sanj. Y'all, welcome back to my channel. I am so happy to be here, y'all, and so excited to talk about this topic. This is one that I've been wanting to do for a while, and that is to share kind of my story and my experience thus far of being young, black, and married. And yeah, this is something that's important to me because I feel like in the Christian community, it's important to have representation, right, of black people and black marriages. And also there's just a lot of layers to this topic, so I wanted to just kind of share my story and my experience of being young. I am currently 27 years old. I got married at 24 years old, blackity black, and married, of course. And so yeah, that is where we're going to start. And so if you are interested in content like this, I also do content around vlogs, but I kind of just like to share what's on my heart, what's on my mind, things about womanhood and life and leveling up and Christian living and all that kind of stuff. Go and hit that young subscribe button. And so to get started, y'all, I want to start with the young part. So y'all, as I mentioned, I got married at 24 years old. I met my husband at 23 years old, and I knew within like a month that he was my husband. Absolutely knew, and was like, oh my goodness, God, woo. And he felt the same way, and we still did our due diligence in, dating and really proving out that which we felt that we were, the one for each other. So we dated for about like a year and 3 months prior to getting engaged. We had about a 3.5-month engagement. I have a video on that if you're interested, in terms of how I planned my wedding, but we got married. And it has been joyful. Like, I promise. I wouldn't lie. Like, I feel like marriage gets a bad rap sometimes, and there are definitely, things you have to work through and communicate through and talk through. But I have experienced so much joy, and I think that when it's with God, when it's with the right person, right, like it's magical, and it has been that for me, y'all. And I say that to say, so because I was young when we met and also when we got married, I was really kind of the first person of my friend group to get married. Other people were kind of like loosely dating, casually dating, but I was the first to get married, which was awesome. And it also came with some challenges because all of a sudden I was in this new life, this new lifestyle. As Christians, we didn't live together before getting married. So I'm going through all this change of, embracing my new life as a married woman while also still being myself that nobody else was going through with me. And so I remember feeling like I didn't really have spaces where I felt like folks would understand that part of me and of my life, which was a huge part of me in my life in terms of my husband and my marriage. So I felt like when I was hanging out with friends or even talking to people, like I kind of had to limit it to like single Sanj, even though I was no longer single. And so what I mean by that is just like talk about things that weren't related to marriage or some of the things I was experiencing, simply because the other people weren't experiencing that, hadn't experienced that, couldn't really connect, and I wanted to be respectful of that. So there was a while there where I felt kind of torn because I felt like I was living this life and loving it, like truly loving it, learning, how to be a godly wife, being passionate and having a growing passion for homemaking and cooking and just really serving my husband. And it just didn't resonate with most of the, close people in my life. And it also, it felt like not anything that I had to hide by any means, but something that I was very much so going through on my own. And so that was a little bit difficult and lonely at times. And I know my husband, I don't want to speak for him, but he had kind of some similar emotions of nobody else really around him was married in terms of other, friends, young Black people. So we were just kind of like going through this together and being so full of joy, and also feeling like we didn't really have anybody to share that joy with authentically. So that it's not something that I regret or complain about or anything, because I've since felt like it's actually been, and I always knew, but like it's a huge blessing, because I get to help my single friends, not just like on the relationship side of things, but just kind of like help them and speak to them and just kind of like help them navigate, because I've done some navigating. Not to say that I know everything, I most definitely don't. Far from that. But I do feel like I'm in a position to be able to help walk my friends through some things that God graced me to walk through early. So that has been a blessing, but it is that was something that I felt, and especially being Black, I felt like there weren't a lot of Black people that I knew that were married. There were some who, perhaps had children or were dating somebody, but not really that were, seriously dating or like trying to date God's way or had like a strong value of marriage, which is not to say that as a culture we don't, because that's absolutely not true. It's a stereotype. So, I'm not trying to buy into that or play into that at all. I'm just saying, like, the reality of my experience was none of the Black people around me were really on, the same vibe there. And so that was a little bit lonely, and it caused me to desire that, because I was like, I want to share this joy, to be with other people who can relate to it and affirm it and help feed it, right? Because marriages don't just thrive by themselves, right? They thrive in community with other people, and growing and feeding and encouraging and pushing you back to each other when maybe you're having a tough patch. So I was really desiring that, and I was desiring it from people who also shared my cultural experience. And that's not to say that I didn't find comfort in, people of other races or other people in the Christian community who were also young and married. I definitely did. There's just something different about having that representation of people who, come from your same background. That is comforting and really special. So that is that, and we actually were able to find some other couples. We joined a marriage ministry at our church, which is predominantly Black but also mixed. It's a beautiful array of folks, right? Because that's what heaven's gonna look like. There's not gonna be an all Black section. We all, we out here, and God created us with all of those differences. So that's something that I love about our church, and I also love that there's a strong Black presence there. So we were able to connect with other Black couples and interracial couples and things like that, who were at different stages. Some who were further ahead than us, like married 10 plus years, and some that were also a little closer to the newlywed stage. So I would say, if you're kind of experiencing this or something similar right now, seek out those spaces where those other people are. And it's okay if they're not your age. It's okay if there may not be an exact match, because really you're looking for like-minded people. So that really helped us, and was just super comforting to know, like, we weren't weirdos or we weren't anomalies for wanting to be married and wanting to pursue marriage God's way, and living the life that we were living, which was one of I'd call it, this is gonna sound corny, but just like love in the suburbs, right? Nesting, cooking, going out, enjoying, times, friends and family, but not like, out in the streets as much. So, and by out in the streets, I mean like, whether that's just like out super late at night, out having plans every night, just kind of like really having a strong priority on family. So I've talked about the young part, I've talked about the Black part. The marriage part has been really interesting because Adam and I haven't been together. We've been together a little more than 4 years now altogether, but we haven't been together as long as some other couples who aren't married, who are our age. So the marriage part is interesting because our culture just as a whole, especially, outside of the Christian and just kind of like other religious groups, it's almost much more normal in culture for people to like not get married or kind of prolong marriage and move in together, or live together, date for like long periods of time before getting married, or postponing that marriage until after school or after this or after something else. But marriage not being like not that it's not a strong value, it's just like a different value, and it's something seen as kind of like more of like a piece of paper than like a sacred covenant before God. And so that definitely felt that because we as Christians wanted, to be married and believe that marriage is more than just a piece of paper. It's more than a legal thing. It starts with God, right? It's something that was ordained and instituted by Him. And it's, the space that He designed for people to have children and to have sex and to, build and grow families and all kinds of things, right? But we live in a culture where that doesn't necessarily share that value. So that was interesting because we would meet other couples, and I even have friends, I absolutely love them, who are kind of that mindset, like kind of have their own opinions and thoughts around marriage and when it should happen, and have chosen to move in and live with their partners prior to getting married. And so we were navigating just kind of like feeling like, a little bit like weirdos because we were married and we got married sooner than, these folks who had been together for years and were just kind of planning on staying together like that until, a date in the future when they decided, okay, we can make it official. So that was interesting, and it was lonely at times because I felt like though we shared enthusiasm and excitement about our relationships, we didn't share the way that we were going about them, and we didn't have the same role of God in the relationship. So yeah, that is something that we found comfort in, just loving people where they are, and not expecting everyone, because just in general you can't in general, but not expecting everyone to choose what we chose or live the way we choose or believe what we believe, but really just loving folks and seeking out other like-minded couples, and also opening our hearts to people who live differently but who also love their person and want to connect. So yeah. Sorry, I feel like I've been going on and on. Hopefully this video isn't too long, but I talked about being young, being Black, and being married, and how a lot of those things ran counter to what I saw, what we experienced around us. But that is something, honestly, that I feel, and part of why I wanted to share, feel called to represent that God's plan is still good, it's still beautiful, it's still His design, that Black people also are a part of that, and that we don't have to, accept broken families or broken relationships as our norm, that we also can build and create strong, beautiful, stable, healthy, thriving families, and that marriage is not something that's limited to, you know, the 30s or the 40s or a certain age, right? Like, we don't get to choose when our person comes along. For some people that may be 30s, for some people that may be 40s, for some people it may be later, for some people it may be high school. For me, it was in my early 20s. But that when that time comes, to encourage people to have the courage to know that marriage is not a death sentence. There is so much joy in it. Honestly, it's been absolutely beautiful, and I love this man more and more every day. And I'm not just saying that, like, I genuinely mean that. So yeah, just to represent that it's good, and it's not the end of everything. It's like a new beginning, and it's beautiful. So I hope I encourage anyone who's out there, know that you're not a weirdo for wanting, you know, to be married. You're not a weirdo if you're Black. You know, you're not a weirdo if you're young and thinking about marriage, right? Like, I honestly believe that single seasons are not to be focused solely on pursuing marriage, right? Because there is so much work to be done, so much discovery to be done in singlehood and in marriage. But in singlehood, like, you have, you know, all the freedom in the world to pursue those things, and that shifts a little bit in marriage as you're, you know, still doing that discovery, but also really serving your husband and your family. So yeah, I don't put this out there to say like, oh, you know, think about marriage all the time, because God definitely has a good plan for every person, and it will come at the right time. So I'm gonna stop now because I could just keep talking. But thank y'all so much for watching. Be encouraged, and I'll talk to you soon.